Begin with the 7 o'clock news bulletin. First, the headlines. His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq greets the King of Jordan on his country's 75th independence anniversary and the President of Argentine Republic on his country's National Day. Ministry of Health reports 9 deaths and 857 new COVID-19 cases in the Sultanate. And a cooperation program is signed to attract Turkish investments to the special economic zone in Dukhul. Good evening and thank you for joining us. Those were the headlines and now the news in detail. His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq sends a cabal of greetings to His Majesty King Abdullah II Ibn al-Hussein, King of Jordan, on his country's 75th independence anniversary. His Majesty the Sultan also sends a cabal of greetings to His Excellency President Alberto Fernandez of the Argentine Republic on his country's National Day. His Highness Sayyid Shihab bin Tariq Al Said, Deputy Prime Minister for Defense Affairs, received a written message from His Excellency Dr. Khalid bin Mohammed Al Atiyah, Minister of State for Defense and Deputy Prime Minister of the State of Qatar, related to military cooperation between both countries. The message was handed over to His Excellency Dr. Mohammed bin Nasser Al-Zaabi, Secretary General at the Ministry of Defense, when he received the Plenipotentiary Ambassador Rashid bin Saeed Al Khairin, the Charge d'Affaires at the Qatar Embassy in Muscat. During the meeting, they reviewed the good relations between the two brotherly countries and exchanged views on matters of common concern. The meeting was attended by Vice Admiral Abdullah bin Khamis al-Raisi, Chief of Staff of Sultan's Armed Forces, and the military attaché at the Embassy of Qatar in Muscat. A number of job seekers and employees whose services were terminated went to the directorates of the Ministry of Labour to accelerate in dealing with their conditions, as the government did not stop its serious efforts to provide job opportunities for citizens. The government continues to provide job opportunities through training and qualification programs and the replacement of jobs occupied by the expatriate workforce in the public sector, in addition to employment in various fields of the private sector, including what was announced today of completing the procedures for appointing 2,364 teachers for the academic year 2021-2022, and announcing that Sultan Qaboos Maritime Academy received a number of citizens for employment, in addition to various announcements through the Ministry of Labour in public and private sectors. The Job Safety Fund began to disperse dues to citizens whose service were terminated according to the mechanisms followed since November of last year, as the number of beneficiaries of the job security system until the end of last April reached 6,413 citizens, males representing 78.7% and females 21.3%. It is noteworthy that the job security system was established in March of last year and was funded in the amount of 10 million Omani riyals from His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq, in addition to its subsequent financing through broad community participation. The idea of the system is based on providing social protection for citizens whose service are terminated from work for reasons beyond their control, as it works to bridge the transitional gap between the previous job and the opportunity to obtain a new job by providing an income that guarantees a decent standard of living for them and their family, represented in a benefit for a specific period equivalent to part of the salary that they were receiving, as well as assistance in search for jobs. The government affirms that the job seekers file is among the most important priorities that receives great attention and generous follow-up from His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq. The Shura Council approved drafts of laws and discussed some follow-up parliamentary tools that have been applied by the Shura members in the 12th session that was held today. More details follow up in this report.
During the 12th ordinary sitting of the Shura Council, the members of the Council approved the GCC Anti-Commercial Fraud Unified Draft Law. The articles of the draft law were discussed according to the committee's report and the members' comments that were presented by His Excellency Ahmed bin Saeed al-Sharqi, head of the Council's Economic and Financial Committee and the rapporteur of the committee. His Excellency read the article and the amendments presented thereon. The members of the Shura Council then voted on the draft law in accordance with the basic statute of the state and the law of the Oman Council, approving it by the majority of the members' votes.
Today, in our session, we discussed several topics. Among them is the commercial fraud law among the GCC countries, and through the session the Council approved this law. Also, we discussed the math and science basic schools curriculums. Also, the Council returned this study to the Education Committee for further studies for this study. Also, the Council discussed the amendment in traffic law, and the Council approved this amendment also.
After that, the report of the Education and Research Committee on the wish expressed about the science and the mathematics serious project was discussed. His Excellency Yaqub bin Muhammad al-Rahbi, the committee's rapporteur, gave a detailed explanation to the Council about the procedures that the committee followed in the study of the project. The Council also approved a proposal to create a legal article in the traffic law that deals with the right of the vehicle owner to permanently cancel the registration of the vehicle or temporarily suspend its license. This report was presented by His Excellency Dr. Hamad bin Hamdan al-Rubai, in which he pointed out that the proposal takes into account some categories of vehicle owners whose work requires leaving the Sultanate for more than a year, including diplomats, some merchants, and other students of colleges. The proposal also takes into account the circumstances of workers in the transport, construction, and contracting sectors. The Shura members came out today with 3 essential and important decisions that showed clearly the contribution of the Majlis with the decision makers in affecting several issues and topics in the Sultanate. Saif Al-Kindi for English News, Muscat.
Thank you, Saif, there. Meanwhile, the Shura Council office approved a briefing request about residential units and loans in the Sultanate. The meeting also discussed some ministerial replies and follow-up mechanisms regarding partnership agreement to establish and develop Khazain City, the development of typical residential schemes, and the efforts of the Minister of Labour to employ job seekers of preschool and English language literature major graduates. The meeting was chaired by His Excellency Khalid bin Hilal Al-Ma'wali, Chairman of the Shura Council. The Sultanate participates in the World Health Assembly's 74th session, which commenced virtually today. The meeting is attended by member states, will run up to June 1st. I was present at the opening session and I have made this particular report. The Sultanate, represented by the Minister of Health, is participating in the World Health Assembly's 74th session that commenced virtually today. The meeting, which is attended by member states, will run up to 1st of June. Number of world leaders gave their statements on the importance of working together to have that commitment between nations to provide a solid foundation for enhanced cooperation, a treaty on pandemic preparedness and response that can address the challenges. His Excellency Dr. Ahmed bin Mohammed al-Saidi, Minister of Health, is leading the Sultanate delegation. Present in the meeting, Minister of Health and the secretaries and senior officials, in addition to Ambassador Idris bin Abdul Rahman al-Khanjari, Sultanate's permanent representative to the United Nations and international organizations in Geneva. His Excellency Minister of Health presented the Sultanate statement where he pointed out that despite the progress that has been made in understanding the pandemic's nature and root causes, identifying some measures for its prevention, managing its spread and part of its effects, and developing a bank of knowledge, more need to be done to beat this pandemic, as is still taking too many lives. His Excellency Dr. Saidi stressed the Sultanate's strong belief in advocating human security and peace through global cooperation, as the country hosted, in cooperation with the WHO and the United Nations Secretariat, a meeting to call for health security and peace in the Eastern Mediterranean region. In the meeting, Oman have reaffirmed a regional commitment with partners from across the globe to expanding cooperation in health, especially within the context of COVID-19, as a tool to harbor international solidarity, stability, and peace. Abdullah bin Ahmed Al-Rubi'i, Sultanate of Oman Television, Muscat. The Minister of Health registered 9 deaths and 857 new cases of COVID-19 in the Sultanate. It also registered 485 recovered cases. The Minister of Health announced that the total number of COVID-19 cases registered in the Sultanate reached 211,221, while the total number of deaths reached 2,274. The total recovered cases reached 195,435, with the recovery rate of 93%. The ministry indicated that the total number of inpatients reached 685, of which 237 are in intensive care units around the healthcare institutions in the Sultanate. In an effort to attract investments, the Public Authority for Special Economic Zones and Free Zones and the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Investments Promotion signed a cooperation program with the Turkish commercial delegation to establish an investments project in the Special Economic Zone of Duqm. The project is the activation of a model for the industrial zone in Gebze in Turkey, where the joint investment sectors are concentrated in mining, petrochemicals, food and logistics services. A meeting was held at the headquarters of the authority to discuss the enhancement of trade cooperation between the two countries in a number of areas and the definition of the investments climate opportunities and incentives that the Sultanate offers to investors, as well as the most promising sectors, infrastructure projects and economic projects. His Excellency Engineer Ahmed bin Hassan Adhib, Deputy Chairman of the Public Authority for Special Economic Zones and Free Zones, indicated that Turkish companies can easily access the region and African markets through the port of Duqm, and there are also lands designated for gas-dependent projects, explaining that the gas pipeline project to Duqm has been completed and the Duqm refinery project is near to a completion stage. The National Committee for Bioethics at Sultan Qaboos University reviewed during its meeting the preparations for the 10th Intellectual Forum to be held at the end of this year, as well as the proposal to establish a subcommittee to authorize research from an ethical point of view for researchers whose institutions do not have specialized committees in this regard. The meeting discussed developing a website that includes the committee's activities and documents, as well as follow up the issues of establishing the committee's endowments fund. The meeting was chaired by His Highness Sayyid Dr. Fahad bin Al-Julanda Al-Saeed, Vice Chancellor of Sultan Qaboos University. You are watching the Sultanate of Oman Television, and yet to come in our news bulletin, benefiting from natural resources of renewable energy and project is established to produce electricity in schools of the Governorate of Al-Dhahira. Once again, welcome back to the news from the Sultanate of Oman Television. diagnosing educational loss among students and finding innovative and effective solutions to address it and limit its effects. The most prominent of what is discussed by the seminar, Learning Lost in Light of the Coronavirus Pandemic, Its Effect and Treatment, organized by the Minister of Education in cooperation with a number of international organizations. The inauguration of the symposium was patronized virtually by Her Excellency Dr. Madiha bint Ahmed al-Shaybaniya, Minister of Education. Despite the current challenging market conditions resulting from the pandemic and fluctuating oil prices, Sohar Port and Free Zones reported an increase in cargo volume and overall performance in 2020. The port recorded a 1% increase in the number of containers that reached the port, whilst break bulk increased by 18.2%, liquid bulk by 5.9%, and dry bulk by 1.5%. In addition, the port also recorded 100% growth in ship-to-ship STS cargo, given its strategic location and its reputation for delivering unmatched quality of service with quick turnaround times. Complementing the growth of the Port Sohar Free Zone showcased significant development. It has recorded 3.8% increase in total exports, 14.6% rise in represented companies, and 1.1% increase in total through output. Now, for Oman oil price, July delivery 2021 today reached $66.43, comprising a rise by $3.18 from the price of last Friday, which was $63.25. The average price of Oman oil May delivery 2021 has stabilized at $64.43, thus $3.58 per barrel higher than April delivery 2021. The inflation rate in the Sultanate increased last April by 1.59% compared to the corresponding month last year, according to latest data issued by the National Center for Statistics and Information about record figures of consumers' prices. The rate witnessed also an increase by 1.47% compared to March last year. The prices index increase in April was attributed to a rise in the prices of main groups such as transport group, various goods and services group, culture and entertainment group. In contrary, prices of hotels and restaurants group, vegetables and fruits group, and fish and seafood group compared to the corresponding month last year. The Public Authority for Social Insurance signed an agreement with Sohar International Bank to collect subscriptions via the electronic website. The agreement comes within the context of expansion being witnessed by social insurance services as part of digital transformation plan in a way that achieves high quality, easy and flexible insurance services rendered to customers. The move will enable them to accomplish their transactions around the clock. With the communal partnership between the government and the private sector, the renewable solar energy project for 2 schools in the governorate of Al-Dhahira was completed with production capacity of 120 kilowatt. The initiative was offered by Shell Company and in cooperation between the Minister of Education and some companies of the private sector. The project aims to develop knowledge among students and visitors on harnessing technology in solar energy system and electricity consumption rationalization. This is the Sultanate of Oman television. Before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq greets the King of Jordan on his country's 75th independence anniversary and the President of Argentine Republic on his country's National Day. The Minister of Health reports 9 deaths and 857 new COVID-19 cases in the Sultanate. And a cooperation program is signed to attract Turkish investments to the special economic zone in Duqm. And with that, we end tonight's news bulletin. We'd like to remind you to keep following the precautionary measures of wearing face masks, washing hands, and keeping physical distance from each other. from all of us here at the newsroom and studios is good night and stay safe and healthy.